Morning. Welcome to Community of the Wild Goose. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers as we talk about the biggest mother ever. Well, God, I mean, you know. Because he's not gender, that's why I can't go to a regular church. We're speaking in terms of the God who is spirit, that is mother, father, sister, brother, all of those things. And I know it feels weird and it feels awkward to talk about God as mother because we just always use father. And the only reason why we did that is because of, not the only reason, but one of the reasons is because that culture of talking about God during biblical times in the Old Testament and before that, it was patriarchal. Everything was patriarchal. It was the man, all about the man. And yet, we're going to find in a minute that Jesus even speaks as himself as a sort of mothering type. And so, we're not going to sparse it out on what is fathering and what is mothering and, divide it up that way. We're going to look at the different aspects, look a little bit at the intensity of those two combined that make the Spirit of God. That it is not male and female in a gender role, but it is the masculine and femininity nature of God. Do you know that wisdom in the Bible is Sophia? Wisdom is Sophia. Last I heard that was a woman's name. But it's the feminine spirituality of God, that aspect of it. The Spirit of God is calling out to us in Proverbs when it's the woman on that one hill and the other woman on the other hill crying out to us. One is what you all call her, it's the whore in the Proverbs in that story, and on the other hill is the wisdom, the female who is wisdom, calling out both to us. And in that aspect of it, without looking at it in a sexual way, but looking at it more in the way that we are drawn to false gods, those things that draw us, our title, our identity, our income, those preoccupations that call to us and say, come here and obsess on this one thing, rather than feeling the freedom of wisdom, of knowing that I'm so much more than that. That I'm not even, though I am a dad, I have children, that's not my identity, that's what I do. That's part of this life that I have that I'm blessed with. And that I am even more so not haunted by the repercussions of me not having a father. Dad dying when I was 4 years old can leave a lot of mess and unmet need and that aspect of it. How do I overcome? I don't. I'm overwhelmed by the love of God as Father. Why shouldn't also those who have lost mother or never had mother or not had an adequate mother, a mother that meets needs, have the mother nature of God mothering them? Jesus said, as a mother hen protects its chicks, so do I. So do I. I think more accurate is how often I wanted to gather your children together the way a hen gathers her chicks under her wings. I would bet there's a lot of people that come. Normally we're averaging around 46 people in here. I bet you there's a lot that are really busy or going to breakfast or brunch, and that's awesome, but there might be one or two that are hurt on Mother's Day. Really struggling. And some that come that feel that as well. So, and it's just not satisfying to think of a intangible God that can't give me that mom hug that I would need, that I may never have had, or that which I have lost. So not feeling like God is capable of giving that tangible, outward, physical hug can cause me to think that he isn't able to meet those needs. But what we have to look at is that aspect of this is different, that God is saying, I'm going to hug you from the inside out. And that's why you're not feeling me from the outside in. That in you possess the warmth and the compassion. If you did not, then you would not have compassion on others. Perhaps that compassion that you have comes from a higher, unimaginable, unfathomable compassion beyond yourself that is coming within you saying, yeah, you can do this. You can do this. But you can't do it without me. You know, that Eric, Frankie, Natasha, you feel like you can't do this, but it's within you because I'm there. And I wish to gather you like a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, that protection. See, what we've done, whether you're an alcoholic or you're an addict or you're an obsessive compulsive or you are a human being, what we've tried to do is we have tried to escape and run and find our outward hug by pleasing ourselves, looking for ways to please ourselves, to amuse ourselves. The preoccupation causes us to find ourselves lost in our techniques of escape. And yet, escaping is not bad. It's where we're escaping to that is bad. We run into the arms of the Father. We run into the arms of Mother. God as Mother, God as Father. Jesus was inside having this really deep conversation with his disciples and with these other people that had gathered that were really the scoundrels of the community. And he was hanging out with them. And somebody came to him and said, hey, your mother and your brothers are wanting to talk to you outside. You know what he says? I'm with my mothers and my brothers. I'm with them right now. That's just weird. I'm sorry, but if I'd have been there, I'd have gone, what? What is he talking about? What he was talking about, I believe, is that your identity is not based upon blood when it comes to the mothering and fathering of God. So the question in that, I'll skip down to I did it again. Look I have 3 points. I know, it's crazy, it's mind-boggling. Please don't ever expect it again, but I'm on a roll. When we're creating the home of our heart, what we have to ask ourselves is, am I worthy of this by blood? Or am I worthy of this by being an intimately faithful foreigner? Who cares if you are a faithless blood relative? Who cares if you carry the name? What's more important, a faithless blood relative or an intimately faithful foreigner? Don't you have people that you know that sometimes are closer than even blood relatives? And you have family and you're like, why do I feel so much more grace with them than I do in my own home? Don't we feel that? It's crazy. And I think that's what Jesus was saying when he was saying he wasn't dishonoring his mother or his brothers. What he was saying was, my brothers and my mothers and my brothers and my sisters and my mamas and the papas, went back to the 70s there for a second, are the ones who follow my commands. Those are my friends. What are his commands? His commands are very simple. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul, and mind and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. So what he was trying to do is he was saying, they brought you into this world. Okay? They brought you to this place. They brought you to the dance. But unabashedly, you get to dance with everyone. But they brought you here. See, the connection we have to Mother is a physical connection. We have a physical connection to the Mother because Mother brings us into the world. Good, bad, ugly, distant, narcissistic, guilt-ridden mothers. Nevertheless, they birthed. and there's a physical connection. The fathers are the ones that choose you. So when you speak in terms of God as Father, you're speaking of the one who is for us, who has chosen us. Jesus didn't tell the disciples, I picked you because I went through great labor to give birth to you. He picked them because he said, I wanted you. You had nothing for me to offer. You would have had to take so many online courses to do this work. It still wouldn't be started. I choose you because I want you. That's what the Father does. What the mother does is goes through great pains to tell you you belong by birth. There's a wonderful story in the book that we're going through in the Ragamuffin Gospel. By the way, there's another copy here if somebody needs one. And there is a donation thingy there for coffee. So if you could put a little in for coffee, that'd be awesome. This time or next time. So if anybody would like that, that'd be awesome. So here's what I love this, where he says, Jesus cuts to the heart of the matter as he sits the child on his knee because of the nature of how children were viewed back then. Okay, they're second-class citizens. They were in the way. And he says, Jesus cuts to the heart of the matter as he sits the child on his knee in front of the disciples, and the child is unself-conscious, incapable of pretense. He says, I'm reminded of the night little John Dyer, 3 years old, knocked on our door, flanked by his parents. I looked down and said, Hi, John, I'm delighted to see you. And he looked neither to the right nor the left. His face was set like flint. He narrowed his eyes with apocalyptic glint of an aimed gun and said, Where's the cookies? He was demanding the cookies. Turn them over. That kind of freedom to say, where's the cookies, is what the motherness of God does. We've got the father part down, but do we have the welcoming nature of mother that says, you know what, you can try to disown me, but you can't. You belong. My mom was honored yesterday from the little Spanish-speaking Presbyterian church we were raised in her whole life, and played piano there up until 92 years old. And they named music school in 39th Avenue in Thomas area for probably the larger population is South American kids. And so they named this the Evelyn Rojas School of Music. My mom would be so embarrassed. She was going, she goes, that's so silly. Why are they doing that? Who am I? But you know what? She says that because she never had a music lesson. And she played piano her whole life. She played by ear. She raised us singing and doing music. And she never had her lessons. She listened to her sister's lesson practices. And then when everybody would go to bed, she'd get up and go to the piano, and she'd play what she heard. She played by ear. She was supposed to play the violin, so that's why she was sneaking around playing the piano. And then she became just an incredible pianist on her own. She put music in front of her, and she could barely even know what it was saying, but she'd pick up on a few things, but she'd do her own version of everything. No music lesson and no high school. And they name a music school after her. What does that say about our identity? That we found our identity too much in being certified and licensed, when we should rest in the truth that you were qualified. Qualified by what? By your experience. By your experience. By your life experience, we become qualified. And the only way that you can continue, and I know this is the way I've had to do it for 25 years, is I have to prove myself every single time. Because I was 24 hours short of my bachelor's degree. And then I was training master's level therapists to do multifamily work. So I'd have to prove myself every time. Oh, I guess he knows what he's talking about. There's no letters after this. How does he do this? Work for a counseling organization. I didn't get paid as much as the ones that were licensed. and I had to be supervised by somebody who had their doctorate, but they wanted me to do that stuff. So I come fall from the tree of my mom's legacy of saying, I want to do it this way. I want to go from the gut. And then you find those people who believe in you. I was trained under Dr. Robert Cotter as a psychiatrist who got that. And he told me, he says, the danger in you finishing is you'll get paid less and you'll lose your gut skills. And I was thinking, okay, but how do I prove myself? You know? Well, you just got to have a lot of vouchers. You got to have a lot of people behind you. You know, this is going to sound like I'm patting myself on the back, and I so am. But I was calculating how many one-to-ones I probably have had over the last 20 years. And it's in the 1,500-1,600 range. Women with eating disorders. People ravaged with issues of different types. People in high-profile positions that didn't know where to go because they were afraid it would be written in their file, or they'd get a diagnosis and a label. So we'd put a pot of coffee on and we'd talk. So it took me to get to this point of 59 to be able to say to those who would be naysayers and say, who do you think you are? It took me a long time. It's taken me all these years to not be bothered by that. To feel sorry for those who don't understand where our world worth and our value comes from. And that's the kind of home that we create in our heart. We create the kind of home that my mom created that said you're allowed to say, where's the cookies? In our case, it was, where's the tortillas? Where are they? Our kids would go to the house. The minute they got to the house, one of them would say, "Dum, Oma." They called her Oma. They meant gum. They knew they could get gum. Right? I don't know which one the kid was the first one couldn't say gum. Said, "Dum, Oma," and she'd get the biggest kick out of that. Because they knew, the grandkids knew that was the only place where they could get coffee in their milk and have cafecito with their Oma. It was a safe place. It was the only place that they were able to be there, feel at home, and watch some other adult pick on her own children in front of them. I'm the grandmother, let me do what I'm doing, kind of thing, Mom, no, we don't do that at home. Well, we do it here. It was a safe place. It was the only place that I could be wrong in my marriage and my argument, and I could go and get coffee with my mom and spill the beans and say everything. And she felt good that we both had a mutual enemy for a while. That's just twisted. And it's wrong, and it's not healthy for a marriage, let me tell you. But you know what? That's how far the extent goes in a mom making a safe place. Isn't it true? Anybody relate to that aspect of it? It's like you have to train them, Mom, you can't do that. That's dysfunctional. Don't do that anymore. But you still go back for coffee every time things go bad. There is that aspect of it that the mother nature of God helps us to create that home. I think that Brennan Manning is speaking of that in Ragamuffin Gospel when he speaks of Abba's indiscriminate love. He says, whatever we have done in the past, be it good or evil, great or small, is irrelevant to our stance before God today. It is only now that we are in the presence of God and we can say, where's the cookies? It's about being a child and being willing to be a child and to recognize where your difficulties are and be able to say them almost proudly. Because you know your identity doesn't come by what you achieved or you earned or you worked hard to get, but by the declaration of God as Father and Mother saying, this is my son, this is my daughter in whom I am well pleased. And we're able to stand against the bullies of this life that sometimes come in the form of religion. Often. But even more intimately, they come within the editor in our own head that says, who do you think you are? We have to come as a child. He says, in the present day, we tend to idealize childhood as the happy age of innocence insouciance. And trust, you read this, you're going to come across a word like that, and just Google it, man. This dude's got some words that it's such simple writing, all of a sudden insouciance. What the heck is insouciance? It is that carefree, relaxed, feeling. Uninhibited, unfettered. That's what he's saying as a child. He's saying, come to me that way. Wow, that is so different than sometimes what I had heard in church. In the present day, I had a girl in Charlotte. In the present day, we tend to idealize childhood as the happy age of innocence, insouciance, and simple faith. But in New Testament times, the child was considered of no importance, meriting little attention or favor. Children in that society had no status at all. They did not count. The child was regarded with scorn. For the disciple of Jesus, becoming like a little child means the willingness to accept oneself as being of little account and to be regarded as unimportant. The little child who is the image of the kingdom is a symbol of those who have the lowest places in society, the poor and the oppressed, the beggars, the prostitutes, and the tax collectors, the people whom Jesus often called the little ones or the least. Jesus' concern was that these little ones should not be despised or treated as inferior. See that you never despise any of these little ones. He was well aware of their feelings of shame and inferiority, and because of his compassion, they were in his eyes of extraordinary great value. What a thing to do in that culture when children were treated as second-class citizens, and they were born the wrong gender. They were sent into the desert to either become slaves or killed by animals. True story. And yet he said, when they were starting to come towards him because it was welcoming, the disciples tried to keep the children away. He said, let the children come to me. So you see the power in those words? Because he was speaking to an entire culture. They have felt self-conscious and oppressed and inferior. Let them come to me. Do you hear what I'm saying, you guys? They felt self-conscious and inhibited and inferior. Let the children come to me. If it was us, the disciples would have said, yeah, but she's 47 years old. She's not a child. And he would have said, let the child come to me. She feels self-conscious and inferior and inhibited. Yeah, but he makes a lot of money and owns land. He's not a child. Let that child come to me. He's pretending to be something he isn't. He's inferior and self-conscious and inhibited and hiding behind his skills and his abilities and his title. Let him come to me. But the question to those people are you willing to be a child? One of the first Beatitudes is, blessed are the poor in spirit. It's not just those who are impoverished. It's those who feel that poorness within their soul. And he says, blessed are you. You're qualified. There's no license or certification for being poor in spirit. It's just, ta-da. I'm aware of it now. And he says, let those children come to me of all ages who have felt inferior and insecure and beaten up. Because you know what? The child wouldn't hesitate to walk in this room and say, hey, I need something. And we'd freak out. That's kind of inappropriate, right? I'm going to take a risk this moment. I love this girl right here, Natasha. She needs some work. And she wants to help others. And I'd like to get our resources together and figure out how we can help. If anybody has, some place, some work, some area, whatever, but we gotta maintain community that way. And I know that's risky, and I asked her permission to do this. But you know what? We're no different than you, Natasha. We're all the same. We're all the same. And I appreciate her boldness for letting me. I had to kind of pull at her when she was helping me with my Bluetooth. I begged to mention it, and she said yes. So if we can, and if you don't hear anything right away, don't get discouraged, okay? Because we're not used to doing this kind of crap. Are we? Who does that at church? But you know what? If we really want to be like this, if we really want to be like this, then we're going to do that. And we're going to say, hey, Heather works over down at the clothing and food bank at the thing. If you got stuff, bring it, because there's homeless people and that can use some of those items. We do that. And we even do it here when we have leftover Danish and give it to the volunteers, because we're all part. They help set up and they do their thing. We should probably buy them their own stuff, but we give them the leftovers. This is what community is. Because of what Brennan Manning is saying, Abba's indiscriminate love. And you know what you can do too is if you want to communicate something, if you want to do it through myself or to Brad through email or whatever, if you get some ideas, then we'll stay in touch. Okay. All right. It's all good.
Yeah. We've all been there.
Yes. Oh, we've all been there. Absolutely. It's God mothering you. Mm-hmm. To create that, to embrace the indiscriminate love of God, is to be the recipient of all of God's love with no expectations. That was the downside of mothering, was my mom putting the guilt trip on us that you never return a dish empty, dude. Leave something better than when you left it. Move your stuff aside, act like you're not present. We don't want to be a burden on others. So there's a downside to the earthly mother that way, right? But God is not embarrassed, because he knows that those are also children. Creating a home is to partake in all the aspects of being a valued person, a sense of belonging. And one of the biggest things that they did back then in being able to experience it was meal sharing. It says, nowhere in the New Testament is the privileged position of turkeys, nobodies, and marginal people on the fringes of society disclosed more dramatically than in Jesus' ministry of meal sharing. In modern times, it is scarcely possible to appreciate the scandal Jesus caused by his table fellowship with sinners. And by the way, sinners at that time was an actual category of people. It wasn't like, here with a Southern Baptist accent, here you're going to bring your sin because you're all sinners. It was actually a categorization of people, perfect and imperfect. Categorizing all those who were less than the hierarchical part of society, the upper crust, the good people. Anybody else was considered a sinner. So when he says this, he's saying he was hanging out with a whole, in that culture, lower caste of people. So it says, in first century Palestinian Judaism, the class system was enforced rigorously. It was legally forbidden to mingle with sinners who were outside the law, table fellowship with beggars, tax collectors, traitors to the national cause because they were collecting taxes for Rome from their own people to get a kickback from the take, and prostitutes was a religious, social, and cultural taboo. Sadly, the meaning of meal sharing is largely lost in the Christian community today. Not in our house. Growing up, it was all about the food. I remember when I'd bring a girlfriend over or whatever, and the first question my mom's was, "Do you want coffee?" And if she said she didn't drink coffee, we had a huge problem. "You don't drink coffee?" "No." "Let it go, Mom." "But she doesn't drink coffee?" It's like, how do you live? Because that's how we talk. I don't know if I can talk if you're not drinking coffee. Food was there all the time. You didn't go, "No, I already ate." No. Whatever it is, roll it up in the tortilla and eat it. That's how I got my eating disorder. You can roll up anything in a tortilla. Your feelings, everything. I wish it weren't true, but it is. There there is nothing more comforting than a burrito. I just got to tell you. I name my burritos. Right? Sadly, the meaning of meal sharing is largely lost in the Christian community today. In the Near East, to share a meal with someone, I love this. To share a meal with someone is a guarantee of peace, trust, fraternity, and forgiveness. Wow. The shared table symbolizes a shared life. For an Orthodox Jew to say, I would like to have dinner with you, is a metaphor implying, I would like to enter into friendship with you. How cool is that? That is so cool when you consider that's what Jesus was doing at the Last Supper. I want to have friendship with you. I don't want to just know of you, I want to know you. I don't want to just love you, I want to learn to be fond of you. I want to hang out with you. How do you do that if you're subscribing to the religious rule of entryway of behavior first? Of repentance, of getting yourself together, of getting a clean slate. How would you even be motivated to want to do that if you didn't feel like you were rooted in an intimacy of belonging? The only way that we're going to be able to continue this and heal from the torment of what we physically lost in mother or father or loss is to realize what Jesus said when he said, my brothers and my sisters and my mothers are here. And it's so awkward, but it's only awkward because we're not used to it. We're used to separating categories of people, them and us. And at some point we have to grow up and let that go. My mom, as loving and as dedicated as she was, she still was so prejudiced. Them and us, we're Mexican, but we were the classy Mexicans, not like those other Mexicans. And that was just her culture and her understanding, but it didn't change the fact that she had the heart of a mother, you know? And sometimes mothers go too far. They think that we're better than everybody else. That's the pride and the, you know. Charlotte wants to put the chairs away now. We're done.
Sorry.
No, you're good. So in this aspect of it, in this idea of meal sharing, now it makes more sense. Why? We come to the table and we share this meal. Now, it's a lot more fun when it's potluck. It's a lot more filling anyway. But any meal, when we first started here at Community Wild Goose, we started with cornbread and chili. That was our communion. Remember that? We started with cornbread and chili. One time we had coffee and croissants. We got so orthodox. I don't know how that happened. But the main thing was we wanted to make sure we did it every Sunday. We didn't want to miss that. That was one of the things I loved about church, was that it was just so meaningful to me, not because it was something magical or superstitious, but it was because what this was saying was, and I think for those of us who struggle in the area of not feeling good enough, right, is that it was saying, God, for so long we were trying to meet up to the expectations and go to God. And we never knew that God was with us all the time. And that the symbolism of Jesus being broken is God's way of saying, I'm not waiting for you to get perfect. I'm going to be broken with you and in you and alongside of you. And that your identity is not by blood relative. It is by the poured out blood of Christ who says you belong and you are broken and I am broken with you. And then Jesus, like I always say, he went down to Fry's and purchased cran grape. And he said, I'm all in, you guys. I'm all in to being friends. I'm not holding anything back. I'm not just throwing crumbs like we're at the koi pond. I want to be that with you and in you and about you. I'm pouring it all out. And it's going to seem as though death is the end when I pour out my blood and I break my body. But it is necessary so the inner life and the experience of resurrection on earth, not after death, but the resurrection on earth is for us. So every time you eat this bread and you drink from this cup, I want you to remember that everyone is welcome, even the insecure, even those who feel self-conscious, even those who feel weak, even those who have not had mother, even those who have lost mother, that we become mother, brothers, sisters, fathers, all of the sibling things for us together. So as I play a little music, as I return it on, this is the most awkward part. Did you get the moonshot on the camera there?
Zoomed in, man.
That's smoother than that. Just come, feel free, dip it, take it, and we're going to go back to our seats and then do our this last thing that we put on here. Listen to the words of the song as though God is speaking these to you as you commune with Him.